Debugging in WordPress, it's very useful for us developers to know what we are working with, test out our themes and our functions, and see what kind of errors we're getting back. By default, inside of your root, vp-config comes with a vp-debug set to false. This means that the debugging has been turned to false and it should not display on the front end. When you do try to require a file that doesn't exist, or the path of that file is not on the location that you're trying to require it, you will get error on the front end. So we can see if I turn on this property here, which means the debug log is set to false, this interior should prevent us from displaying these kind of errors. However, in this case, when we are working with inquire or include a file that doesn't exist or the path is wrong, we're still going to get these kind of errors. Let's test out debug functions and how we're gonna log our test inside of our project and see the values. So if I start with a simple variable as test and have a string hello world, and now let's echo out this variable like so. We'll see that everything is good on the front end. There's our hello world. Now if I change this to test2, we are not going to get any errors. And this is simply because by default, when you install the WordPress, like I said, we have a VP debug set to false. If we switch this to VP debug true, let's see if we're gonna get errors. There you go. So unidentifiable variable test2, and then conveniently enough, it print out the line of the file that we're trying to use this variable. All right. So that will be our first step. So when you're working on the WordPress side locally, set the VP debug to true. So let's take this step further and try to get these logs files to display and store inside of our log error file. So in order to do that, we have to have VP debug set to true, and then I'm going to uncomment the second line, which tells us that VP debug log also is set to true. And this means that the WordPress will create a debug.log file for us, which will be stored inside of our VP content root directory here. So currently I don't have nothing there, but as soon as I save this file, make sure that I save this one and do refresh, we should be able to get that file. So I'm gonna do VP, there you go. So VP content debug log, and let's see, now we have some errors printed out to our log file. And this is helpful because we can read through it and see what's going on. So to locate the errors and bugs that are happening on our page. And these errors are just coming from the theme that I installed, which we're not going to pay attention to this right now. So let's go back to our code and I'm making sure they have everything correctly set up. So VP debug is true, VP debug log is true, and then let's set this to default. So VP debug display to false. Let's see if we're gonna hide these messages on the front end. We're not displaying these messages to the user, and once you move your code in your site to the server, you make sure that you have this set to false, and also VP debug to false. In order for our debug log to work, we have to have a VP debug set to true and VP debug log set to true. We're trying to echo this test2, however, in our log file, we are not getting more information about that error and about that variable, right? So in order to basically get more information and see what's going on with our code, we could use print_r. It's a built-in PHP function, and try to log in that test2 file. And here we're using error_log, which is another built-in PHP function. So now if I save this file again and refresh the page, and let's check our log file, let's see if we're gonna get anything back. Okay, so we got this, which doesn't tell us much about this variable. So if we want to see the content of that variable, we could use the second parameter in a print_r and set it to true. So now instead of just logging in that variable, we also gonna get a print out details about that variable and type in whatnot inside of our debug log file. So again, the same steps. Refresh our page and check our debug log file. Scroll all the way down, and now we're not getting anything. This variable doesn't exist, right? But if we change this to a test variable, which is hello world, go back to debug, refresh, and there we go. We get the output hello world as a string. So this kind of error logging really comes in handy when we are working with the arrays or when we're working with objects. So let's say that I have this kind of array inside of my code. So we have array. First level of that array is going to be items, and then inside of that items we have a key computer, which currently we just set it to number 1, a laptop to number 2, bike to number 4, and so forth. So let's call this test 3. So if we try to log in our test 3 without that true parameter, this is what we are going to get. Refresh the page, scroll the way down. Let's make sure that I got everything right here. Print r test 3 error log. Okay, so in our case, again, we are getting a number 1, and because we are using a print r function, we're actually getting that print onto the page. This could help us, but it's not so much user-friendly. Furthermore, if we look into the console, we could see it nicely formatted for us. But we really want, in this case, to log this file inside of our debug log file and see what's going on, and then therefore fix the bug or access the values of this array. Using the second parameter true should get us to the place where our debug will display our array. And there you go. So it spits out the type of that variable array, and then inside it spit out the items and whatnot. So I hope that this tutorial helped you working around your code. And yeah, that's it for now.